Welcome to the Nonsense and the Chaos. I'm your host, Jolie Rose. So I'm born on the 31st of December. So I'm a Capricorn. And as of today, the 21st of December, it's now Capricorn season and it's Yule and the winter solstice. So today is the shortest day of the year. Tonight is the longest night. And then tomorrow the light begins to return again. And what a year it has been. Even though my birthday's on New Year's Eve, and I love having a birthday on New Year's Eve, I'll talk more about that in a moment, I still feel like this is kind of the end of the year. And you have Yule and then the 12 days of Christmas. And it's interesting. I think probably most people have really struggled with Christmas this year because no one's got any money. And it's just the consumerism and I think the charade that we're being forced to go through is becoming untenable and what's the word? Unappetizing. No, unpalatable. That's the word. And I think it's really good to come back to what Christmas or what Yule is actually about, which is the returning of the light. Now that is absolutely something worth celebrating. I mean, how wonderful. That was what this time of year was all about. It's what all of the megalith stone structures were built to capture, is the solar return and departure of the summer solstice and the winter solstice. So in magical teachings, the summer solstice is the celebration of nature because nature is at her height, and the winter solstice is the celebration of community because this is the point in the year where we've gathered in our harvest. We're aware of what we do and do not have in terms of sustaining us through the winter months, food-wise. And so this is the time to come together with your friends and your family and your community and share, look after each other, celebrate together in warm places around one fire so you're not wasting wood. It's time to get fat and put on lots of weight for the winter months to see you through, and to then go in and to hibernate and to slow down. And for years and years and years and years and years, I tried to just live life like a normal like it was summer. So my year was very consistently the same. I would just go about my life and I didn't pay any attention to the fact it was winter and that my body was screaming at me to slow down. And I've mentioned this before, but I was at drama school in 2006 and 2007, and it was in Brighton. It was called the Academy of Creative Training, and it was down by the seafront. And for 2 years in a row, I found myself gripping the railings, wailing with tears out to sea in January. And I clocked that it, like the second year that it happened, I kind of was like, oh, I've been here before. Oh, it's the same time of year. Oh, hang on a minute. And that was the first time that I noticed that I got seasonal affective disorder. So that was 2006, 2007. And from then onwards, started to explore ways of helping get it less bad. So started taking vitamin D. So I always start taking vitamin D in September, and I'll take it through till March, April when the sun's back. So I'll take vitamin D. And I got a blood test the other day. I had my MOT blood tests to check how I'm doing, and it turns out that I'm doing absolutely fine, which is great. It's like, I don't know what you're doing, but your liver is absolutely tickety boom. I was like, brilliant. Cholesterol's good. The only thing I had was a thyroid issue in my brain. So I was producing the right amount of the hormone, but the actual thyroid was like stressed. It was overworking. So it was producing an all right amount of the hormone, but doing it in a stressful way. So I've been given some thyroid medication to ease the stress on it. And he said that he thinks that will have a big impact on what might seem like perimenopausal symptoms, which is interesting. So I'll let you know how that goes, because it's going to be 8 weeks of taking it, and then we'll see. So when I come back from Creation Hibernation, I'll know more about whether that's done much. I mean, I don't have that many symptoms. It's just that I every now and then go completely mad. However, I definitely notice that that's linked to ashwagandha as well, and not taking it, as I said before, and also just going through a big thing like Glastonbury Festival or walking a pilgrimage, where I'm putting my body under stress and haven't taken my supplements that I feel help me, like iron as well. Iron definitely helps me as well. I take beef organ supplements that seem to help. Now, I'm not a medical professional, and so none of this is advice to you. It's just things that I've observed in myself. But the other thing that really made a significant difference for my seasonal affective disorder was honouring the creation hibernation process and honouring winter. And then I stopped hating winter, and now I love winter, and especially now, this is the moment. So today we got up early at 7 in the morning and I went to Crewe Harbour, which is our lovely old harbour, and went swimming with a group of friends who got up with me, which was really kind of them. And we did it for the solstice and for my birthday, because I'm leaving tomorrow morning to fly back to England, and I'll be spending Christmas with my family in London, which is going to be a bit of a culture shock, and then visiting Essex to stay with my mum for a bit, and then Brighton for New Year's Eve, and I'm going to a rave, which I'm really excited about. So Yule is the day that is the shortest, and then the next day the sun returns. And that was a really big deal to our prehistoric ancestors, who it wasn't just a given that the sun was going to come back. Like, to us that might seem quite silly, but they actively, asked. And I guess some years, the weather would be bad, the winters would be harsh, and so you're like, please sun, please come back, please stop warming the planet up again, please, like, get us through this winter. And so it was so much more a big deal, and I experience it so much more now being in Sark, because we don't have street lights and we don't have indoor shopping malls. Everything's outside, everything's subject to the elements. And for my daily practice of going to work is to put on my waterproofs and get my head torch on and leave the house in howling gales with rain and then cycle along a mud track and get mud flung all up my back. And then but there's something so wonderful about opening the door and entering into the pub and it just being hot with the heating on and loads of talking and people there and just this feeling of community. So Yule is about community. Tonight I'm going to be going, I put a Facebook event up that was for the whole island. It was everyone's invited, and we're all meeting at the monument at 4 p.m. to watch the sunset. And then we're going to go to my friend's house, and I've said bring instruments, and we're going to have a jam, and and a potluck meal, so everyone's bringing a dish. And I've got no idea how many people are going to come, but just put it out there to say that everyone's invited, because it's community and I don't want anyone to feel left out. So all are welcome, and we're going to go and celebrate being this amazing community. Which brings me on to kind of what has been happening, which I have been observing through making arrangements for New Year in England, was that none of my friends want to come out and rave with me. Which, fine, fair enough. I'm 47. There's an element of grow up. And I don't have children. And so obviously my friends who've got children, that's what you're doing. But that's the thing that I've observed, is that because I'm in a community here that's a small but thriving community, I'm at the pub and hanging out with people of all age groups. So, I was at the pub yesterday with people from 18 to probably 80. And we're discussing everything from how the mini strokes are affecting my friend. And also, another friend just died recently who had really severe diabetes and a boot, had a really horrible gammy foot. And then, people losing weight on those tablets that everyone's taking at the moment, and people dealing with alcoholism, and then people having children and people who are pregnant and new mothers and new fathers and them kind of navigating that world. And then there's 18, 19, 20-year-olds navigating the politics of relationships and falling in and out of love with each other, and people stepping on people's toes and all of the stuff. And it's all happening all at the same time, and we're all involved in each other's thing. And it's brilliant because it means we're sharing intel on, especially the female experience of body changing and all that kind of thing. We're sharing all of that, but we're also keeping each other vibrant. And it's funny because when I moved here, I really noticed how people here looked a lot older than people did in Brighton. And what I said about that was, it just goes to show that alcohol's worse than drugs because Brighton's awash with drugs. And alcohol's a secondary thing. But the only people I've ever lost to a drug and died and or nearly died and have had to go get proper support to rehabilitate themselves has all been alcohol. So with all the other drugs that people I have loved have taken and have seemed at some points to have had problems with, like ketamine and GHB, for example, they kind of were, it was a bit of a problem, but then they came back all of their own accord. And I'm not saying this is the same for everybody, but this is just my lived experience in Brighton. And then lost a person, someone died from alcoholism. 2 people full blown had and needed help and got it and did it, and that was amazing. And then another friend died. It was an accident, but they had been drinking heavily the night before, so that was sort of slightly in the mix. It's just, it is actually the worst drug out of all of them. And what I observed moving here was how much older everyone looked here when that's the main drug. But what has now happened in the 5 years that I've lived here is we have been significantly let down, and we all know this, but this is just from another angle, been significantly let down by our world leaders. And what has just happened is 5 years ago, we went through a global trauma of a pandemic that terrified us, that separated us, that caused us to miss funerals, weddings, deaths of our loved ones, being in the hospital. So many things happened that have affected all of us. And there's been no collective support, mental health support, grieving, kindness. It's just been the absolute opposite of World War III looming, authoritarian control, right-wing, rise of fascism. We have been failed. We have absolutely been failed. And I know that we're all aware of that, I think, on a economic level and on a political, they're about to take away judge by jury, but policing and all of that kind of, the state, they're failing us, and they're going more and more into the darkness, and is off the back of this huge group trauma. So the main thing, other than the fact that the issue is in Brighton with me going out on New Year and there not being anyone to come out with me, is partly because we all hang out with people in the same age group. And so if everyone's having kids, then there's just a handful of you left that aren't. And so there's only a few of you anyway. So before 2020, there was literally 5 or 6 of us that didn't have kids that would still go to the same pub that we all used to go to in our 20s. And it was starting to feel a bit tragic and a bit sad. And, obviously we had other things going on in our lives, but for us to have community and hang out with each other and see someone of an evening, we had to go to the pub, and it was getting more and more expensive, and it was only us hanging out with each other. It wasn't like the younger people in the pub hung out with us. So it was quite sad feeling. And then the pandemic happened, it changed everything. Now it's too expensive to go to the pub, and everyone's hanging out in their age groups anyway. But then it's caused this huge rise in depression, agoraphobia, just the fear response of people not going out. People just don't go out anymore. They can't afford it. It's a weird experience even if you do go. People have to book tables in a lot of pubs in the UK now, and it's mainly food based. Even if you want to play pool or play darts, you might have to book the table in advance. It's really weird. Whereas I'm going to the pub here and it's like the 90s. I'm in this weird position where I'm living somewhere that is like the 90s, and then I'm dropping back in every now and then to this reality that is the UK reality. I'm not gloating. I'm not being down on England. I think I just want to point out what's changed and how it's changed and how big a deal that is, so that we don't, because the problem is with us humans is we get used to things and we put up with things and we're adaptable. I was just listening to a podcast today about concentration camps and actually brothels in concentration camps, which was awful, but it actually wasn't as awful as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be more awful, because it actually turns out that the guards were really not allowed to have sex with the prisoners at all, because they were so seen as subhuman that it was it would be subhuman of you to have sex with a Jewish person or a sex worker, because antisocial people were also put in the camps. But they would have brothels for the prisoners who were the elite prisoners, which was the ones that were like distributing the horrible messages or the food or taking the people to the gas chambers and that kind of thing. They were incentivized not with food and not with better living conditions, because they weren't, but with sex. And the women who were doing it, it was horrific, but it was a much better situation than being in the work camp doing the work, because you were being worked to death. Whereas in the brothel, you were in a room and being fed and being looked after, and they were quite on it with STDs and making sure that no one had STDs, and they all had to show their willies and have them washed before they went in. And it still was horrific, but it wasn't quite as horrific as I thought it was going to be. And it's just that what it made me realise was, listening to all of that, I was just like, humans are so adaptable, and that is why we are survivors. But it means we just slip into getting used to things. You know, that's how you end up with concentration camps, and it's how you end up with horrific situations, because we just sort of walk into it. And I have much more sympathy or understanding of how it happened in Germany now, when I'm seeing it slowly happening before our eyes. And just the layers of lies and the layers of corruption and the layers of authoritarianism. And I do believe there'll be a crunch moment. The good news is that next year's going to be a really amazing year. So this year, if you listen to my podcast from the start of the year 9 year, this was going to be a weird one. We had astrology happening that hasn't happened for 350 years or 150 years. And the last time it had happened was the French Revolution, the Industrial Revolution, the American Revolution. It was all big, mad stuff with a lot of Aries, a lot of fiery Aries energy. But then also it being a 9 year was quite convoluted, subtle, very like wishy-washy, confusing fake news, AI, what is reality kind of vibe. Next year is a 10 year. And in terms of the alchemical process, it's the equivalent of year 8 was stoking the fire, year 9 was cleaning the apparatus, and then year 10 is when you turn the lead into gold. And our lead is the shit. It's the shit. It's the way the government's treating us. It's our shadow work. It's the economy. It's money. It's all the things that are our dark places. How do we turn that into gold and it to become medicine and to be profound and beautiful and useful and what makes us the people we are? And all of that next year is going to be mega. And so for us to really step boldly into next year, it's a Leo energy. I think I said this before, that it means that you are going to have to be seen. Like, you're going to show up and shine, or you're going to show up regardless. People are going to see you regardless. So there's no point hiding. So shine brightly and be the biggest, brightest version of yourself. It's the Star card. It's full blown, and the Lust card as well, if you have the Thoth deck. It's just being in your power and full of golden Leo light energy. So next year's going to be mega. So tonight we've got the winter solstice celebration. I'm going to connect with my community. I'm going to come together and really try and just like shed the gunk of this last year and just step bravely and brightly and optimistically into next year. And we do have a fight on our hands, and we do have work to do, and we do need to pull ourselves together and get out there and do it, because hiding in our homes isn't going to help. It doesn't mean brushing it under the carpet or ignoring it. It might mean getting therapy, or it might mean joining a choir, or like just doing things to push yourself out into the world again, and being completely kind and compassionate to yourself and those around you as to how and why we're in this place and in this position, because it's perfectly reasonable. We've been let down, and for us to create a world that we want, but we've got to be active in it. And next year is that year. It's the year to make things happen. It's the year to shift. And then 11 is like the frequency rises and transcends and vibrates into a new reality. And that will be the year after that. So we're looking at 2008. We're going to be entering into a new reality. So it is all to play for. And next year, the energy is behind you. And kind of as of tomorrow, when this podcast comes out, we'll be in this new energy, because the solstice, we've had the new moon, with Sagittarius new moon as well, this fiery new moon. And then we have the solstice, the new solar cycle has begun. And then the Cancer full moon at Christmas is perfect because it's all about the family and being with the family and being enriched in community. And then we have the Capricorn new moon in January, where we're going to make our iconostasis and our mood boards for the year ahead and to just start creating what we want to create. So feeling into all of that. I know I got it wrong in my last podcast on my own, not the one with Terry, the one before that. And I thought it was Capricorn dark moon in December, which it normally is. So it's quite a big thing that it's all been put off till January, because it's really giving us time to clear up our acts, properly think about, almost like spring clean and get ready for what we're going to do. And what is it? I don't even really know myself. It's not like I'm like, oh, I'm going to go do it's, and it doesn't feel outer worldly for me as well. It's not like, oh, I want to get my book published. I do want to get my book published. That's still something I'm trying to do. But it feels more than that. I feel like I'm very up for letting the universe lead, but I've got things that are happening. You know, there are things that are underway that we will continue to work on, but it's sort of letting the universe lead and seeing where that takes us as in me and Dizzle, my partner, and just seeing where the universe leads us, which actually is quite a good point to pull a rune and see what the universe has to say. Rado. I haven't pulled this rune, I don't think, on the podcast yet. So it's an R, and it means the cartwheel, and it is literally about the changing of the seasons, the wheel of the year. So we're here on the winter solstice, and it's very apt that I've pulled this rune. It's all about the seasons moving and changing, but it's also about journey and travel, and this too shall pass. So this is linked in terms of the tarot card of the Wheel of Fortune, and it's come up in my life twice. So the Wheel of Fortune tarot card I pulled when I was working out what we were trying to say to Matthew Hopkins, the Witchfinder General, when we were creating the Sisterhood play. And we knew that we were taking the play Sisterhood to all the places where Matthew Hopkins had tortured and executed witches. And I knew we were going to do a healing ceremony. And I knew what the healing ceremony was going to be. So we had a black stone and a white stone. And initially, we held the black stone and thought about the people who'd been oppressed. And it might be the witches who'd been burnt there. But any other peoples like that you represented or you came from or that you cared about and you thought about that you wanted to honour. And so you sort of filled the black stone up with that. And then the white stone you held and thought about people or movements or individuals who've inspired you and give you strength and hope, and filled the white stone up with that. And it was actually on like the first or second night that there was a woman there, a white woman there, who had a black partner. And she was like, why are we always doing it this way round? Why is it always this way round, with the black being oppressed and the white being the hope? And I was like, you're absolutely right. Let's do it the other way around. And so we changed it. So it was the white stone was the oppressed and the black stone was the hope. And everyone got it wrong. Like, we would do the ceremony and people would totally stumble over it and get confused because it was so at odds with our brain training that we couldn't think of it the other way around, which is really interesting. I actually once listened to a book called Blink, I think it was called, but it was about the split second before our conscious mind kicks in, where we make judgments, and that's where our innate racism and things are there. No matter how much you think you're a liberal and want to not be a racist, your instant reaction will be negative towards dark skin if you're from a white background and culture, because it's so ingrained in us that it's the non-conscious brain, the subconscious brain's reaction instantly before the conscious brain kicks in and goes, oh, no, I don't mean that. But it means obviously that's having an instant effect on like jobs, like CVs. If you see a name that's a foreign looking name and all that kind of thing, that we have an instant reaction that is a no, that will be a negative towards it. And it's in us. But also that can be retrained, but it needs to be acknowledged that that's like something that we need to work on or develop. And doing the stones the other way round helped me, because that I don't stumble over that now. I'm not saying that doesn't affect everything else that I was just talking about, but it's definitely been a useful thing to do, because it's our brains are so programmed, and sometimes you got to think about it in terms of reprogramming it. And I didn't know what we were saying to Matthew Hopkins. That was the thing. It was like we were doing this tour, and I timed it so that we were doing it over Samhain, and we were going to be performing in Manningtree, which is where he was from, in the pub where he first accused his neighbour of being a witch, and he pulled her out by her hair outside the pub, and through several days of torture and like basic starvation and not letting her sleep, she became delirious and confessed to being a witch, and confessed to 2 other women being linked to her or working with her, and all 3 of them were hung, and they were taken back to their villages to be hung, which weren't all in the same place. And that spread the news that Matthew Hopkins was this witch finder, and he knew what he was doing. And off the back of that, he then was able to go and make loads of money out of being this witch finder, which wasn't sanctioned by the law. He just was a serial killer and a con artist who managed to blag that he was credible. And the civil war was going on, and so the men were off fighting, and there wasn't really enough people around to question what was going on. And so he was just turning up going, anyone got any witches? And the local council were like, oh, actually, yeah, that old woman who's single over there, because if you were accused of witchcraft, your children didn't inherit the land. The government, the local council, would get it. So it was a really useful way of land grabbing. And problem neighbours, whole families would be hung for being witches just because they were a bit of a nightmare. And so I didn't know, so I timed it that we were performing at his birthplace on Halloween on full moon. So that year, the full moon was on Samhain. And so I had it that we were in his birthplace at Samhain, but we had a few performances before that. And then we had some performances after that. And I just didn't know what we were going to do when we got there, because it was what are we actually saying to Matthew Hopkins? Are we going to go find his grave and decimate it? Are we going to scream? Are we going to cry? What? And it was can't really force emotions. Do you know what I mean? It was what are we doing? What is it we're actually saying? And then my friend, actually, one of the girls who was in the cast, brought these really beautiful tarot cards with her. I don't know what deck they were. They were quite a rainbowy sort of 60s hippie, very feminine, very nice set of cards. It'd be interesting to find out, actually. I'll ask her. We did a very profound reading where we pulled cards for all of our characters in the play, and it gave us some insight into our characters that was useful. And then it was actually, should we pull a card for Matthew Hopkins to see what it is we're saying to him? And the card I pulled was the Wheel of Fortune. And in that particular card, there was women between each of the spokes, and the women at the bottom were all in dark blue and had long brown hair and looked like they'd been accused of witchcraft and were in absolute sorrow. And then the women at the top were blonde and in white robes, and it was yellow colour, and they were in their power. Again, the dark being bad and the light being good. But what that card showed me is this too shall pass, and it was Boris Johnson and Trump were in. It was the first time around, and it was just oh God, we've got these imbeciles running things. But it was that this too shall pass, and I know it passed, and then he's come back again, which is mad. But I think we're a lot more awake. We're more awake, but why are we not? Why is he still being able to be in power when you've got the Epstein files and things like that? It's just this, it needs to stop. This needs to stop. But and when people have got that much money, it can feel insurmountable. It's a bit like David and Goliath, but it is possible, and this too shall pass. All dictators die. Berlin walls fall, empires crumble. This will not be forever. So this too shall pass. And then also the other time that this rune meant something significant to me was the pilgrimage to COP26. I pulled this as the starting rune, and then the other rune, the end rune, was the blank rune, which is the Fool. So it means anything is possible. And in that reading, this was going on a journey. So we're going on a journey across the country, and I arrived in the Isle of Wight at the start of the ley line, the spine of Albion, with Scarlet, and we marked the beginning of the ley line, the root chakra, which is at the Devil's Punch Bowl in the Isle of Wight. And we arrived, and there was a motorbike festival happening. And so the whole of the Isle of Wight was full of motorbikes. There was wheels everywhere, which was quite funny. And we did our opening ceremony, and I left the wheel rune in the Dragon's Nostril cave on the cliff edge of the Isle of Wight where the lines come in. And it was mad, actually, because everything looked like dragons down there. It was these giant nostrils. It looks like a pair of nostrils on the edge of a cliff. And then as you're approaching them, the furthest away cave, so the right-hand nostril, if you were looking out to sea, went in there, and at the back of it, there was this huge rock that was coming out the back that looked like a dragon's head. So within the dragon's nostril, there was a dragon's head. And on that, I put my rune, the cartwheel, Rado, and then carried the blank rune all the way up to the crown chakra, which was Hope Bay. And the nostrils are just below Culver Down, and Culver is pigeon, but it can be dove. So it's like Peace Hill to Hope Bay, which was nice. That was a nice thing. And walked that route thinking about Mother Earth and climate change, and it was pilgrimage for nature, listening to the land. And then the pilgrimage I just did was pilgrimage for peace. And it is so profound. This is what has been kind of working its way through in the autumn, coming into winter for me in this little journey that I've been on called life. That, like, the intentions that we put out there are massive. They have a huge effect on reality, which is incredible. Like, my reality gets so turned upside down by the intentions I create. So I have to be careful, but also I don't have to be careful because I'm interested. My intention for next year is the mythos of gold, which I don't know what's going to happen with that. I'm intrigued. I burnt my first banknote on the dark moon ceremony, the Sagittarius dark moon ceremony, and it was surprisingly profound. I'd spent a lot of time looking at it, and I'd written down all of the things I could about it, like how many buildings were on it, how many people, things that were written on it, like the sentences that were said. Like I properly looked at it, like how many times the number 1 was on there, how many times the word 1 was on there, and the serial number. And then I burnt it, and then I read out all this information about it, and I was like, God, this is really weird. It feels like a death. It feels like something's just died, and I'm doing its like obituary. And my friend Kat, who was on the call with me, was like, well, money's energy, isn't it? And by burning it, you've just ended the energy cycle of that note. So it is a bit like a death. And it was weird because I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting that experience. And it was really profound. So I have a £10 note that I've also spent time with and have written everything down about. And it's the £10 note that I would have used for meat draw. And sometimes you don't win at meat draw. Basically it's gambling money. And I didn't buy the raffle tickets that Friday, and so I didn't gamble. But if I had bought the raffle tickets, I could have not won, and it would have just, because I talked about it the other day with people, and they were like, well, but you could give it to charity, which is what people always say. Fine, but he'd literally just won 5-6 things on the meat draw, and I went, but you could have not won anything this week, and no one would be like, why are you taking that gamble? It's your money, you do with it what you want. And I chose not to buy the raffle tickets that week, and so I'm choosing to burn it. And he was like, no, actually, yeah, it's fair enough. I do. Everyone on this island gives so much money to charity. We're charity fundraising all the time. And yeah, it's amazing what we manage to do here. So charity and gambling are very much part of our everyday reality here. I've never ever gambled much before I moved here, but we're always buying lottery tickets and raffle tickets and meat draw tickets and betting on sheep racing. And it's like that. Basically, gambling and charity raising is what we do here. That's what our relationship to money is here, really. But yeah, it's definitely made. So I was going to burn the £10 note yesterday. We were meant to be doing a ceremony to the dolmen to do it, but the weather turned horrible and people just weren't really up for it. And so I'm going to do it today at the solstice as part of the solstice celebrations tonight. And it feels like a big thing for me to burn this £10 note. And it was just interesting. I'd be interested to hear if anyone else does it, what their experiences are, because I'm not saying it's a bit like with the ley lines. I don't know what a ley line is, and everyone has different relationships to it and different experiences of it. And because this is inner world work, everyone's inner world's different, everyone's reactions are different, their universe is different, the meaning, the beliefs, all of the things that are in there, what your imagination's like, all affect how you interact with these things and experience them, and they're all valid. It's not, you don't tell a child that they're playing wrong. Like, how a child plays is how a child plays. Some children are really gregarious and are out on the climbing frames and take risks and want to talk to everyone, and others want to be in an imaginary world on their own and are much more like private and shy, and you can't turn around and be like, that's wrong. Like, no, a child plays the way the child plays. And that's the same with our spiritual connection, our connection to spirit and our imagination and our play and our actions and our intentions. It's all absolutely personal and valid, and we all have the right to give ourselves permission to fully express ourselves and experience reality through the avatar that is you. And everyone's different, everyone's unique, which is why it's amazing that any of us managed to cobble together a reality in any shape or form. And also, well done, well done all of us for what we do manage to do, but also to have like empathy and patience and compassion for other people's journeys. Today is a weird day for me. It's actually ended up being great because it fell on the solstice. It ended up being really good because I was already going to be doing the solstice stuff anyway. But there's a big meal that the women on the island have for Christmas, and there's a bunch of us that don't get invited, and I'm one of the women that don't get invited. I've been here 5 years and I don't get invited, and it's horrible. And we've talked about it with some of the people that are involved in it and said, this feels really horrible. Why are you not asked? Some of us, one of the girls that doesn't get asked has been here 15 years, and it's like, why? But I mean, at the same time, we don't really want to be somewhere. You don't want to be somewhere where you're not welcome, and or where people it can feel a bit bitchy. Like, you're going to sort of get together and bitch about people. It's quite an oppressive force. It can feel, and it's hard, and it's a hard thing to navigate. And last year was really upsetting. There were people who were really upset, including myself, about last year, because the numbers of people that were invited significantly grew, and people were invited that never even go out. And it was like, well, why are they getting invited when they literally never go anywhere or do anything? And then you're not inviting people that you hang out with and socialise with on a regular basis. And the group of people individually we hang out and get on, but collectively we don't, and it is hurtful. And this year it happened to land on being the solstice, and that for me was great because I would have been doing the solstice stuff anyway, and the solstice is about community. And so it's been nice to be able to reach out to everyone who's not been invited and be like, well, you're all welcome to come to this event, and this is for everybody. And it's just, community is a tricky thing, and it's not easy, and you have to just accept that people aren't always going to like you, or you're not everyone's cup of tea, and that's just the way it is. And sometimes you're going to upset people, but it's not necessarily forever, and hopefully you can sort things out and make amends. And then some people are never going to forgive you because they're like that, and you've got to just accept that. And all of these things are just part of the messiness of life. And this rune, this cartwheel, is like, this too shall pass. We're on a journey. It's a pilgrimage. Life is a pilgrimage. And things will not remain the same forever, and to keep being open, keep growing, keep exploring, and trusting the process. So yeah, now on to the Chaos Crusade. If you enjoy this podcast, then please consider supporting me at Patreon, which is patreon.com/JolieRose. And we are heading into Creation Hibernation. This is the last podcast of season 2. So I will be back in the new year. I was thinking about when. I was thinking maybe in bulk, but I think I'm probably going to say the end of February. So the beginning of March will be when I come back. I need 2 months really to have off. And we'll be entering into Creation Hibernation, which there's a group of us who are going to be doing that, where we're going to meet up online and write together and share a creative process of writing. You don't have to do writing, but we will be doing writing. So I think probably you do have to. Yeah, I think it's a writing immersion. I have done it before where it's like any creative thing. But this one is a writing specific one. So if you want to join in with that, then drop me a message, noncesinthechaos@gmail.com, and I can tell you more about that. It's very cheap. It's very cheap to join that. It's mainly if you sign up to Patreon to the little bit extra tier, then that it's free. It comes as part of that. And if you're not doing that, then it's I think it's like £2.50 a session or something. So if you want to get in touch and sign up to do that, then in January with an amazing lady called Claire, who actually I'm going to invite to speak on the podcast next year. But my friend Claire has invited me to take part in her herd time, which is incredible. She does shamanic healings with people, and she does it in a space, the stables, with the horses, and the horses sometimes come and help and support, which just sounds incredible. I'm very excited to enter this space and experience the horses healing and supporting the healing, and they're very sensitive creatures, so I find that absolutely intriguing. So that's going to be in January, so if you're interested in finding out more about that, then get in touch. And then we've got Ostara Immersion Weekend, which is on like 22nd, 23rd of March. There's, I think, 2 spaces left. So if you want to book onto them, then do that ASAP. And then we've got Beltane Festival, obviously, coming up in May. So there's lots still happening. And I will be doing the moon ceremonies and the moon articles. So you'll hear from me over the next 2 months. But I won't be doing any other posts, and I will be offline doing podcasts and things like that. So I will not be scrolling or just generally interacting with social media. I'll just put up the moon ceremonies and the moon articles when they come out. And so if you want to see me or talk to me or have anything to do with me, then keep in touch through the moon ceremonies or just email me. And then I will return at the start of March with the new series of the Nonsense in the Chaos. And just enjoy your winter months. I hope you have a lovely time. Now on with the show. So for this week's Chaos Crusade, my invitation is to do something around community, to take away the pressure of it being this corporate consumer Christmas, to do something with your inner twin, with your inner world, where you make something. So I made a Yule log, which is a log with 4 candles on that you burn over the 12 days of Christmas. So you'd start lighting it today, and then you'd over the 12 days, it would be like the candle would last 3 days for each candle, and then you would burn them down for the Yule period. And I've made one as a gift to Ellie, who's very kindly letting us use her house this evening for the solstice celebrations. And that's just a nice thing to do. And although this isn't coming out till Friday, so it's a week from now, it will be Christmas will happen. But just while you're in the thick of all of that, to give yourself that, just to do something, like maybe you get a present that you're happy to pass on, and you go to a neighbour who you haven't seen for a while and give it to them, or I don't know, something that just feels like that you're stepping outside of your comfort zone and reaching out to community in a different way, maybe going working in a soup kitchen or something. And it can be, like that in-between period between Christmas and New Year. Just see if there's something you can do in that time that's just a little bit unusual for you, that is being kind and caring to someone else. Maybe sending a postcard, writing a letter, drawing a picture, writing a poem, something that's an act of kindness that you're putting out into the world. And I think not making a song and dance about it as well, that it's something that you do secretly, that only you know that you've done, and that you're putting out to just make the world a slightly better place and for it to be community centred. So that's what I would suggest for the Chaos Crusade. And to just really be gentle with yourselves over this new year and into the new year. We've got some lovely gentle astrology. You're being taken calmly into the new year. And it would be great to make the iconostasis with you if you want to do that. That will be what's happening. It's around January the 18th. I'll be doing a dark moon ceremony, the Capricorn dark moon ceremony. So like I said in my last podcast of collecting images to put on this iconostasis, and we'll make an iconostasis together, which goes on the back of your altar, and it's just like a mood board for the year. And it's so inspiring. I mean, my one has been incredible for this year because I have literally done everything that's on my mood board. It's all come to fruition. So it is a powerful tool for focusing the mind and really setting intentions. So I'm excited to enter into this 10-year, and for us to really work on our pixels. This year is the year for our pixel to shine bright. And if enough of us do that, then the overall picture will change. So as much as it feels impossible and it feels fucked and it feels scary, we have the capacity to change this. And next year it feels like a big year in terms of that. So shine bright, be the best, highest version of yourself, and be brave, and come from a place of love and compassion and community and kindness, and to keep reconnecting with that. It's not a one-way street. This isn't like pilgrimages, peaks and troughs and ebbs and flows, and the wheel will keep turning whether you like it or not, and it's cyclical. It's not this linear thing. So, you know, you might be upset with people not inviting you to a meal, or things happening that make you annoyed or upset and angry, and that's fine. You're a human. But to keep recommitting and re-centering yourself with love and kindness and compassion and integrity, and to just keep coming back to that. So it doesn't matter if you falter, if you trip up, if you fuck up, that's okay. You're a human being. But to keep coming back to this place of love and forgiveness for yourself and for everybody else. So happy Christmas, happy New Year. I'll see you on the other side. Have a beautiful, relaxing time, and huge love to all of you. Thank you for all the support you've given me this year. Do tell people about this podcast, word of mouth especially, because social media has become so useless. The internet, I think, is about to disappear, which is frustrating for me, because this is one of the ways that I had of accessing people, audiences. You know, this was what this was all about. But I will keep going, because the internet still is here for the time being, but you can see it disintegrating, but that's okay. We'll just go with the flow. And I've said before, you know, the Alan Moore, the writer, who is a self-proclaimed wizard, if you do a YouTube search for Alan Moore wizard steam paradigm shift, words like that, it's worth watching this video. It's Alan Moore talking about how we were ice people in the Neolithic times, and then we became water as we started to travel around and colonize and trade and all of that stuff, and now we're turning into steam, and that it's a huge shift that we cannot possibly comprehend, and we're not going to know what it's like till we get there, and there will be pluses and minuses, but we just got to go with the flow. And the age of Aquarius, which we've entered into, Pluto entering Aquarius, also mirrors that, because it's an air sign. So we've gone from earth, this heavy Capricorn earth energy, into air, into this entrepreneurial, crazy ideas air sign, which is why so much astrology this year was new, because nothing's been happening in this Pluto in Aquarius for 350 years. So it made a lot of the astrology the first time in our lifetime astrology. But that's all settled in a little bit now. Like, it's going to be in that sign for the next, I think it's like nearly 20 years, or best part of. And so that's happened, and yeah, I just think we're going to be settling into it. But things are changing, and you can see they are, and we got to just relax, really surrender. So loads of mindfulness, loads of meditation, connecting with nature, but also being brave and brash and bright, and going, right, my pixel's going to shine. So shine away, my darlings, and I shall see you in the bright, sparkling new 10-year of 2026. See thee anon.